Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Before I begin today, it's time for our next Primarch focused week special. And I was planning to do Korax, until I realised we've already done the Raven Lord. So I'm debating between Lorgar or Vulcan at the moment. I know Vulcan will be the popular choice, but drop your thoughts in the comments below. Over the course of the week I'll decide on which Primarch it's going to be, and then I'll announce it at the end of the week. However, with that out the way, on to today. And today we're having a little bit of fun on the channel, as I ask which Traitor Primarch do you want to return next? General spoiler warning to begin, as today we will be referencing events from across the Warhammer 40k universe. So you have been warned, and with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, a few months back, with the arrival of 10th edition, I did my rankings of what Primarch I thought likely to return next, from the least likely to most, before the narrative of 10th begins to unwind. And for me, even with Angron adding to the traitor ranks, the arrival of Lion L. Johnson surely makes it a foregone certainty another traitor will be next, to really heighten that threat and danger onto the Imperium once again. It's not coming anytime soon, maybe not even at the end of 10th, most likely probably not until the end of 11th. However, I thought it'd be interesting to see who you all would prefer to return next. So, this doesn't have to be who you think is going to return next, more the Traitor Primarch you'd like, given the current narrative and situation of the galaxy. So, who are the options? Well, we have Perturabo, the Hammer of Olympia and Primarch of the Iron Warriors; Fulgrim, the Phoenician, Primarch of the Emperor's Children; Lorgar, the Horizon, Primarch of the Wordbearers; and I'll include Omegon, Twin Head of the Hydra and Primarch of the Alpha Legion. And I'm not going to be including the more out there choices, the Traitor Primarchs who are pretty clearly dead: Horus, Kurz and Alfarius. I guess this is a bit of a twofold question, as any Primarch who does make a triumphant return to the spotlight and tabletop also gets a codex and revamp of their legion, so I guess you can of course factor that into your choice as well. Though for this discussion I'm mainly going to be sticking to the Primarchs. Now, of all these four names, Perturabo's has probably been mentioned the most throughout the years of the lore post-heresy. Though he has always been off-screen, his war machines and plans have often been used or aided others in bringing ruin to the Imperium of mankind. Among other things, he's been said to have unleashed a curse onto the mechanical systems of Forge World Toil, resulting in the annihilation of the world. We witnessed the Iron Warrior homeworld within the Eye, and seat of Perturabo within the Uriel Ventris saga. Perturabo's planning was of vital assistance to the success of Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade, launching a massive strategic assault against Segmentum Obscurus. He fought and lost the War of Rust and Ruin against his brother Mortarion, and he's said to have cooperated with the new arrival of Vashtor the Archiphane, something I'd like to focus on some more in another discussion. So while Perturabo's physical presence may not have been witnessed since the heresy, his name has still been spotted from time to time, far more often at least than the other options we're discussing today. For me, Perturabo has always been one of, if not the, most underrated Primarchs. The Perturabo Week special we did will always be one of my absolute favourites, really showcasing what a tragic character he is, getting behind that sulky stereotype. Honestly, an experience that really changed how I viewed the Traitor Primarch. Personally, I would absolutely love to see him retconned to not having ascended to demonhood, which I think is definitely possible given he's never been seen. But hey, even seeing him more akin to a dreadnought than demon would be good enough. I think the possibility of Perturabo returning would open up some fascinating possibilities for Segmentum Obscurus, an Empire Revian that the Legion has carved out, perhaps being assailed by the Tyranids on the other side, or simply a more material, traditional war front for the Chaos Forces, a step away from Abaddon's goings-on in the Webway and the goings-on of gods in the Warp, a launch of a campaign where we get to see Perturabo's brilliance firsthand. That would be great, seeing Guilliman having to contend with his brother on a campaign scale, two of the greatest strategic minds of the Primarchs. Or maybe even L. Johnson, finally getting revenge and confronting his brother for the time Perturabo betrayed him in the Heresy, fooling the Lion into handing over valuable siege cannons, which were then used to massacre the Salamanders, Raven Guard, and Iron Hands. Now that would be a great twist. So there really is some great reasons for a Perturabo return. It could really spice up the setting in several ways, a lot more than maybe people would think for Perturabo on first glance. Moving on to Fulgrim. Fulgrim, the Primarch we've been waiting for what feels like eternity. Whatever happened to the Phoenician? It felt like it was certain he was back. Rumours were flying everywhere. He appeared in Dark Imperium. Then it all just faded away, and we ended up with Angron instead. The Phoenician over the years was fairly MIA from the galaxy, I would say, compared to the mentions of, say, Perturabo. Let's just say most likely enjoying himself elsewhere. However, with the return of Guilliman, he really made a quick return to the fore. Before Guilliman even left Macragge on his Terran crusade, we saw Fulgrim taunt his brother from afar, the first Traitor Primarch to reintroduce themselves to their reborn brother. And then, as I mentioned, we got to witness Guilliman's death at the hands of Fulgrim within the first Dark Imperium novel, in a scene that Fulgrim really came across quite well in. Yes, he was goaded easily by Rabute, as he always is, but it also highlighted his brilliance too, the perfect showcase for what Fulgrim's become. And we did have subtle mentions back in 8th edition of a demon matching Fulgrim's description being sighted on battlefields across the galaxy, implying that he is back in action out there somewhere. On a galactic scale, I don't think Fulgrim's return has as many exciting possibilities as Perturabo's, at least for me. However, on a more personal level, with his feud with Rabute, now that would be fantastic to see. Guilliman would surely want to enact some revenge on his brother, so seeing that rematch would be great. There was a reason the Emperor's children alone wore the Imperial Aquila. They and their Primarch are not to be underestimated. On that Legion Emperor's Children note too, completely personal opinion here, but I'd absolutely love to see them get a full-on army and codex release. There's always been something about the neon pink that just set them apart for me. Of all the traitor legions remaining to get their own proper range, I think the Emperor's Children would be the absolute best and by far the most characterful. And can you imagine that Fulgrim model? With the ridiculous quality of the sculpts these days, that would be beyond something to see. I doubt it would happen, but a sculpt of Fulgrim in normal form and then demon, like we had with Marathi, would be, amazing to say the least. But again, considering the size, I think that's pretty unlikely. I've also always wondered how Fulgrim would react if confronted by the Emperor, as he was turned to betrayal a bit too easily by Horus for me. Seeing him recoil before his father's light, or just seeing him react to it after all this time, that is definitely something on my checklist. Next we have Lorgar, the Primarch who, given the current narrative, makes by far and away the most sense to return, as well as probably the most excitement. Lorgar was in his meditation and isolation for the past 10,000 years, so he has been almost completely absent from the lore. However, thanks to the Heresy series, we got a scene of Lorgar to easily rival that of Fulgrim's, by seeing Lorgar fighting Corax within the Eye. There, I have to say, it did feel like Lorgar came off a bit of the worse. But if there's any Primarch who really deserves his moment in the spotlight, honestly you can't go far wrong with Lorgar. Now I'm going by memory here, but I don't think we were given a time for when this confrontation between Corax and Lorgar took place. Only that obviously it was post-Horus Heresy. And like Perturabo and Fulgrim, there has since been vague references to the Golden One returned, now leading a holy crusade across the stars. Lorgar, as I said, does make the most sense to return, due to the huge focus around the Emperor's godhood and the Imperium's faith. His word-bearers are currently active within this whole narrative also. We've even seen an ancient word-bearer dreadnought revealed as the Anchorite, a hidden secret of the Ecclesiarchy, desperate to hide the truth that Lorgar is the real source of the Imperial Creed. Not only does Guilliman know of the word-bearer dreadnought, but he aided the Ecclesiarchy in keeping it safe, and has since been seen to read his brother's holy book. Now this is to try and understand the element of faith, not to convert to it. But this all means Lorgar's presence is all over this current narrative, without even being present himself. If there was any Primarch who would make sense to come back next, it would surely be the Urizen, the Primarch who worshipped his father as a god, who was punished for it, who found salvation in the arms of the ruinous powers, and now sees that former father worshipped as the one thing he denied. How can it not be Lorgar? Personally, I'm not a fan of the Legion, so I wouldn't be particularly excited for that release. However, Lorgar himself, how could you not be? And then finally, Omegon. Now, as it stands, Alfarius was slain by Rogel Dawn, which has been confirmed, at least previously, and it appears Rabute slays Omegon during the Scouring. However, until we get to that part of the Scouring series, you'll have to take that with a pinch of salt. And just for the record, as I've mentioned before, I do not believe Alfarius and Omegon switched places permanently at the end of Head of the Hydra. For me personally, that came across quite clearly as Omegon suggesting he be the one to meet Horus, as he'd never seen him before, so the reaction would be genuine. As he stated, it came across as for that encounter and that encounter alone, an example of how the two twins could easily interchange and swap places. So, considering Omegon is believed to have died at the hands of Guilliman, it's no wonder there's been no mention of an Alpha Legion Primarch in the lore since. However, if Omegon were to make a surprise return, it would surely be one of the biggest surprises ever in the lore. Within the events of the Alpha Legion novels, we've seen quite clearly there is no semblance of structure for the one-time Legion. They are truly broken into separate warbands. It's been the only way they've been able to survive, hiding within the Imperium for 10,000 years. The fate of Omegon is largely believed to be dead, though as ever with the Alpha Legion, no one seems to be completely sure. So there is still that element of doubt amongst the warbands. One thing is clear though, it is referred to as Omegon. Now, as we discussed a few weeks ago, the Pale Spear has been acquired by the Harrow Master, an Alpha Legionary named Solomon Akura, who is using this spear as a symbol to re-merge warbands and assume power, to try and reform his legion entire. That for me could absolutely lead to a return of Omegon, if they wanted to head that direction. He could return, claim the Pale Spear, and leave once more. Or he could return and take command of this reforming legion. Maybe even stop it, revealing the legion is to remain dispersed until he says otherwise. If you wanted the surprise and mystery factor, Omegon would absolutely be the pick of the selection. The only element of doubt I have is how he appeared to sabotage Alfarius's plans, revealing a possible loyalty to the Emperor. How would that all play out if he did in fact come back? That for me is a little bit tricky. But with the 4 traitor Primarchs, who is your pick? Who would you want to return next? It's a bit of a tricky one, isn't it? There's reasons for each of them. Again, I think Lorgar is probably the most likely, and that godhood storyline is absolutely fascinating. But I have to admit an Omegon appearance in a book would blow the roof off the lore. It would be a huge reveal, immediately sparking wonders and theories on where he's been. If we're talking tabletop, however, I've gotta go with Fulgrim. The Emperor's Children Legion, the Fulgrim model. That would be an absolutely stunning release. Probably immediately becoming the best Traitor Legion range available. And I'm saying that as a huge fan of the Death Guard and World Eater factions. But again, for me, head says Lorgar, heart says Omegon, in a novel for sheer shock factor. And I'd probably go with Fulgrim for the big full return and release. But as always everyone, what do you think? Which of the 4 traitor Primarchs do you want to return next? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.